Good morning, welcome to Insiders. Well, the new federal parliament is starting to find its own rhythm, and the conduct of question time in particular is already a vast improvement on the indulgences and disorder of the past. And the government too, while not yet making major decisions, is at least pushing ahead with substantial debates on broadband, water, asylum seekers, the mining tax, and, at the insistence of the Greens, Afghanistan. So it's a crowded agenda, but there's always room for just one more item. And this week, that item was re-regulating the banks, trying to place some sort of control over rising interest rates. And in no time at all, the concept became known as Hockenomics.
Hello? Wow, brought out the crowds.
Under this government, banks put their interest rates up, in some cases well ahead of the Reserve Bank's interest rate rise.
The government needs to step up to the plate and do something to put pressure on the banks to make sure they do not go beyond the cash rate.
And the first principle is, of course, the independence of the Reserve Bank.
What is the Treasurer going to do to pull the banks into line?
He wants to re-regulate interest rates, Mr Speaker, and he wants to take punitive action against banks.
What tools does the government have to either require or pressure the banks to follow more closely cash rate movements by the RBA when setting their variable interest rates on their loans?
So I think, Senator, they're largely commercial decisions for the banks.
I have not suggested that we will be using Section 50 of the Act. That was a senator.
I can't see the circumstances where you would really need to do that.
We didn't see this kind of behaviour by banks under the former government.
Clearly, the banks were ignoring the government.
Every time interest rates go up, the Treasurer goes out there and says how terrible it is, but nothing changes.
How do we ensure that the Australian people get a better deal out of their banks?
It's not clear to me what Joe Hockey's on about, apart from getting a headline.
There's a few levers we've used in the past.
Well, the Parliament's got plenty of legislative scope, but really I think you should raise those questions with Joe Hockey.
You can always count on the member for Wentworth.
There are a range of levers that are available to the government, right?
I'm not aware of any precedent for the Federal Parliament regulating interest rates, at least in recent years, but you should speak to Joe about that.
The Turnbull wing of the Liberal Party, Mr Speaker.
Order.
I am not going to be specific.
Well, nothing specific as usual.
What Australians want is concrete action, not populist rhetoric.
Specifically, the request to the banks.
I'm dreaming away.
It would be rather difficult to have a central bank independently operating monetary policy through interest rates, and at the same time another body, i.e. the government, regulating those interest rates. That doesn't sit too well together.
I think most Australians recognise that we're best served by competition in financial services and a free market.
John Howard or Peter Costello, for all their faults, they would wince at the statements today from the member for North Sydney, Mr Speaker.
We can't have the situation where it's all upside for the banks and downside for the taxpayer.
We do need to make sure that they are operating within what the community would expect is a reasonable band of behaviour, and I think that's what Joe's talking about.
I don't know what he's really suggesting. There's nothing practical there at all.
The member for Canning, he was asked about the member for North Sydney's views on monetary policy this morning, and this is what he said.
This is just another one of the, as I said, lunatic fringe type ideas.
It does pain me to say it, but I couldn't agree more with the member for Canning.
This was not attributed to anyone but the Greens policy.
Very good to hear Joe coming aboard there.
I'm sorry, don't grow too hard.
I mean, these people have lost the plot, Mr Speaker.
I think we'll be sticking with the free market and competition.